Hey everybody, we're going to keep talking about large parts of a sentence today because we're going to talk about phrases. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that phrases might be the most difficult concept in this series to understand, so we're going to hit it in as much detail as possible. The main thing to understand is that a phrase is a group of words without a subject and its predicate acting as a single part of speech. Okay, so it's a set of words that work together as a single part of speech, and they can't have both a subject and a predicate. So you'll see phrases that have one or the other, but not both. There are three types of phrases that we're going to talk about: appositive phrases, prepositional phrases, and verbal phrases. Verbal phrases we can break down into the three types of verbals that you should remember from our Parts of Speech series: infinitives, gerunds, and participial phrases. If you're having trouble with those concepts, I recommend you go back and watch the video about verbals again. So on the second half of this slide, I have examples of these three basic types of phrases. The first one here in this sentence has an appositive phrase. An appositive is a word or group of words that renames a noun. Appositives come immediately after a noun and give you more information about it. So take a look at this sentence. Okonkwo, the main character of Things Fall Apart, is the most respected man in his village. This sentence has an appositive phrase. It's right here, the main character of Things Fall Apart. You see how all those words work together? They're all renaming Okonkwo, all right? So that's an appositive describing Okonkwo. That group of words is essentially acting as an adjective, so they're acting as one part of speech, right? The second sentence, in the novel, he kills many people. Okay, this sentence has a prepositional phrase. Okay, a prepositional phrase includes a preposition and what we call the object of the preposition. Right, so in this example, in the novel, in is one of your prepositions. Right, and again, if you're having trouble with prepositions, I recommend you go back and rewatch that video. And the preposition is going to always be followed by an object, what we call the object of the preposition. In this case, it's the word novel. Right, remember that prepositions show relationships between nouns. Right, in this case, he kills many people in the novel. Right, the word that in is connecting to the rest of the sentence is the word novel. And the third type of phrase that we're going to talk about are verbal phrases. You should remember that our verbals are verbs that are acting as another part of speech. Right, an infinitive is the to form of the verb, right? To be or not to be, for example. Right, a gerund is a verb acting as a noun. Right? Studying is my favorite activity. And a participle is a verb acting as an adjective. The studying student did better than the student who wasn't studying. So if you look at this sentence, to understand the novel, reading all of it is critical. This actually has two verbal phrases. To understand the novel, right, here is one. And reading all of it, right? To understand the novel, there's an infinitive, right, to understand. Reading all of it starts with the gerund reading, right? So reading all of it, that's a noun phrase, right? That's a gerund phrase acting as a noun, right? And to understand the novel, that is an infinitive phrase that is acting as a sentence adverb. So those are the three basic types of phrases. Phrases are groups of words working together as one part of speech, and they're always going to be either an appositive, a prepositional phrase, or a verbal phrase. So let's look at another slide that has some examples of these. Okay, so let's look at some example sentences with phrases in them. This first sentence, my favorite novel, Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, is not very long, contains an appositive phrase, right? Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, all those words are acting together as an appositive, right? Giving us more information about the subject of that sentence, novel, right? It is displayed prominently on my bookshelf. This sentence has a prepositional phrase, All right, it begins with the preposition on and ends with the object of the preposition, which in this case is bookshelf. All right, again, there's a limited number of prepositions, and you could learn them all, but they show relationships between a noun and another word in the sentence. All right, so in this case, it's connecting bookshelf to prominently. So this whole prepositional phrase is acting as an adverb, answering the question, where is it displayed? In this next sentence, reading all of it only took me a few days. This has a gerund phrase, reading all of it. All right, that's a kind of verbal phrase, right? In this sentence, reading isn't a verb, right? Reading normally is a verb, like I read, you read, we all read. But in this sentence, reading is a thing, right? And the words that go with it work together to make this verbal phrase, reading all of it. Take a look at this next sentence. To understand all of its ideas, however, took considerably longer. This has an infinitive phrase, to understand all of its ideas. Right? This has the infinitive to understand at the beginning, and some other words that go together with it to play one role in the sentence. The next sentence here, the student reading it for the first time will be confused by all the names used in Igbo society. There's a couple phrases in this sentence I want to call your attention to. Reading all of it for the first time, that's a participial phrase, right? In this sentence, reading is being used as an adjective. It's answering the question, which student? All right, so it's the student reading it for the first time. All those words together make a participial phrase, a verbal phrase. Will be confused by all the names used in Igbo society. Well, here we have a prepositional phrase at the end, in Igbo society. We've got the preposition in and the object of that preposition, society. The last sentence, although I was told to read it for class, rereading it has, although I was first told to read it for class, rereading it has become a yearly tradition. Also includes two phrases that we should talk about. It has the prepositional phrase for class, right, in which we have the preposition for and the object of that preposition, class. And then rereading it, this is a gerund phrase. Right? So here's that prepositional phrase. Here's the gerund phrase. Rereading is now a gerund, right? It's a thing in that sentence. Rereading it, that's a gerund phrase acting as a noun in that sentence. So those are some different phrases filling different grammatical roles in those sentences.